Have you ever played Dark Souls and felt a deep sense of awe and intrigue at its world and lore? A feeling that's hard to explain but leaves you craving for more. I know I did. I spent countless hours exploring every desolate corner and poring over every cryptic item description in the game, hungry to piece together the game's hidden story. That ruined world is bleak and haunting, yet I find it incredibly fascinating. But what if there were a novel that captured that same feeling, that same aura, that same mystique? That novel is Shadow Slave. But before I explain why that is, let's first explain each of the worlds. In Dark Souls, you wander a world at the end of an age, a once mighty kingdom now in shambles, its gods and heroes long fallen to dust. The first flame that once held back the darkness is now only a dying ember, and as its light fades, a curse of undeath plagues humanity. The great cycles of light and dark are nearing a grim transition, and the very air is heavy with the sense of a world teetering on the edge of an abyss. And yet, the story of this doomed realm is never handed to you outright. It lives instead in cryptic item descriptions, in the mournful murmurs of weary souls, and in the ruins of ancient cathedrals and battlefields. Each fragment you uncover, an old sword here, a ruined statue there, a familiar crest on a knight's shield, feels like a clue to a vast mystery unearthed piece by piece. The result is an atmosphere of melancholic beauty and looming dread. You're not just playing an action game, you're discovering a legend buried under ash and soul. In the end, Dark Souls envelops you in a haunting world that is as breathtaking in its desolation as it is perilous, leaving you with equal parts despair and reverence. Now, how does Shadow Slave remind us of Lordan? Shadow Slave offers a similarly immersive descent into darkness, but in the form of a webnovel. Its premise, a mysterious nightmare spell that begins infecting teenagers in a near future world, overwhelming them with an irresistible drowsiness. Those who succumb are pulled into a terrifying trial called the First Nightmare. If they survive this initial ordeal, they awaken as awaken, forever changed and bound to the spell's power. Surviving the trial also opens the gateway to the Dream Realm, a vast, ruined magical world populated by nightmarish creatures, long-forgotten fallen kingdoms, and broken realities stitched together by the spell's strange design. The awakened must fight grotesque monsters and face trials that echo the tragedies of a lost past. Each nightmare landscape feels distinct and symbolic, and here's how the similarities start. Like in Dark Souls, the lore isn't handed to you outright. It's uncovered in cryptic memory descriptions, remnants sometimes granted by the spell when you slay a creature. Each memory or echo offers a fragment of a story, perhaps a vision of a once mighty hero devoured by the spell, or a magical sword humming with the faint recollection of its former owner. When a memory or echo drops, it comes with a name and a description. Just as in Dark Souls, the world's lore in Shadow Slave is pieced together gradually through artifacts, echoes, and the haunting words of spirits rather than straightforward exposition. We can clearly see the correlation between them. In fact, each nightmare in the Dream Realm is said to be a reconstruction of some ancient event in the world's hidden history. Stepping into one is like walking into a living legend or a horror story from eons ago. Those who conquer these nightmares return with precious rewards, mystical abilities, powerful memories, and hard-won insights into the world's secrets. Shadow Slave's world is far from safe. Even outside these Oneric battles, every nightmare originates from a seed of darkness. If left unconquered, that seed will mature into a gate and unleash its horrors upon the waking world. In other words, an apocalypse looms with every failed trial. Humanity survives only by the courage and grit of the awakened, who venture into one nightmare after another to prevent those otherworldly blooms from ravaging reality. This creates a constant atmosphere of tension and heroism against bleak odds. Much like in Dark Souls, civilization in Shadowslave is on the brink of annihilation. People cling to the last bastions of light, both figuratively and literally. The majestic gloom of a citadel, the last bastions of humanity, or the twisted streets of the Dark City, for example, could have leapt straight out of a Souls game. Those massive, gothic, and brimming with silent stories carved in stone scream Souls-like. As we follow the characters through this nightmarish landscape, we slowly unravel the truth behind the nightmare and the dream realm's origin, piece by piece. The tone is dark and exhilarating in equal measure, capturing that same mix of fear and fascinations you experience in Lord Ran's depths. At first glance, a video game about undead knights and a web novel about dream-walking survivors might seem worlds apart. But as you venture deeper into Shadowslave, the Soulsborne lineage becomes unmistakable. The storytelling style is also kindred, indirect, atmospheric, and rich with mystery. Neither tale spoon-feeds you. Instead, they immerse you completely in it. You learn about the world by exploring it, surviving it, and stitching together fragments of story on your own. Even the overarching themes resonate between the two works. The cyclical battles against encroaching darkness, the lingering influence of bygone ages on the present, the idea of ordinary humans, be it an undead warrior or once unremarkable teenager, rising to challenge a seemingly inescapable fate. The emotional palette, too, is the same blend of awe and melancholy. Interestingly, Shadowslave's characters also echo archetypes from the Soulsborne saga. Take Cassie, for example, a blind, ethereal young woman with an uncanny spiritual link to the protagonist, much like the Firekeeper from Dark Souls 3. Even their physical appearance is pretty much the same. Then there's Nephis, a brilliant and driven warrior who harbors an almost divine longing. You can see this footage that's popping up on the screen right now. It's footage from Guilty 3's own YouTube channel where he's playing Dark Souls, and as you can see, his character is pretty much like Nephis. When it comes to the mechanics and structure of the story, Shadowslave also channels the spirit of the games. In Dark Souls, every enemy you defeat yields souls, the currency of power. And defeating a mighty boss might grant you a special soul that can be forged into a unique weapon or spell. Shadowslave adopts a very similar idea. When Sunny, the protagonist, slays a monster in the Dream Realm, he harvests its soul essence to strengthen himself. In both works, the act of vanquishing enemies doubles as a narrative device. Each soul or echo comes with a snippet of lore attached, teaching you about the world through the very mechanics of leveling up and gear collection. Just as you might glean hints of Gwyn's age from a soul or ring description in Dark Souls, Sunny often learns of ancient heroes or fallen gods through the memories and echoes he acquires. A very good example of this is the Shroud of Graceless Dusk. What's more, the very concept of nightmares in Shadowslave bears striking resemblance to the surreal ordeals of Bloodborne. In Bloodborne, the hunter enters twisted dream realms, nightmares, to hunt beasts and uncover cosmic truths, blurring the line between reality and dream. Likewise, Shadowslave has its awakened heroes literally plunge into nightmares created by the spell. The influence is undeniable. And you also can't tell me that the Dark City isn't inspired by Yarnam and Lordran. The tone of these sequences, the dread-soaked atmosphere, the sense that the world's slightly askew under alien moons, captures that Bloodborne feeling of a lucid nightmare. Both stories use the realm of dreams as a battleground where humanity confronts its own nightmares made flesh. For a long time, Souls fans, Shadow Slave is sprinkled with affectionate nods that make the world feel even more connected. One nightmare in the novel even features a giant moth-like monstrosity that immediately calls to mind the Dark Souls moon-like butterfly boss. In many of the Dream Realm's other horrors have that familiar grotesque elegance of Soulsborne enemies. The rank and file foes in Shadow Slave, known as the Corrupted, behave much like the Hollows of Dark Souls, once human and pure, now reduced to mindless monstrosities, corrupted by a curse. Ultimately, Shadow Slave manages to capture the very soul of a Soulsborne, while still standing on its own. And it's no accident either. The author Guilty 3 has openly acknowledged that Dark Souls and Bloodborne were inspirations. So, if you're a fan of Soulsborne and especially Dark Souls, you should most definitely go read this novel. Let yourself a bonfire and enjoy the chapters.